chickadee. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll be walking momentarily. Just putting out some food for the chickadees. Hello, chickadee. You divine little creature. That's a chickadee. That's a black-capped chickadee that's puffed up today. Hello, lovey. Come and get your food. I mean no harm. You know that by now. We're pals. Come and get your food now, buddy. Come on. There you go, you little lovey. I love you. You come by to say, oh, there's a tufted titmouse. It's not going to skip a beat. There you go. Come get your food, guy. Hello, little chickadee. There you go. All right, guys. Let's take our walk now. Let's take our walk. I'm going to put this garbaggio over here. Get some garbage. And hello, everyone, and welcome. You know, we have these shifts in weather. Yesterday, we had a big shift in weather. So in this particular case, the birds think it's spring. They don't have a meteorologist. Matthew Belcher says, happy Sunday. Yes, indeed, Sunday. Thank you, Matthew. Happy Sunday. So we have these birds who are going through some significant life change right now because of the cold shift. And so the titmice are by. Here comes a beautiful nuthatch. Oh, there's a nuthatch. Hello, nuthatch. How are you, buddy? They run down trees. Let's see if we can get a demo of how they run down trees. And there's a downy woodpecker. These guys are all hungry today. Pot Love Me says, hi, friend. Hello, Pot Love Me. Yeah, that's a downy woodpecker hopping down the tree. And these guys want to be left alone so they don't have to be on stage with me. I get it. So we'll take our way to the woods. Let's flip the camera. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Let's make it to the woods now. They need to get some food. So they had a lot of food these last few days with the temperature increase. And now it's like 30 degrees today and they're feeling, okay, maybe spring is not here. So let's make it into a theme for our talk today. When we have expectations, right? Let's talk about expectations today. What they really are, why we develop them, why we have them, and how is it that we can figure out a way to have clear expectations? Ooh, I thought that was a snake. How can we have clear expectations that are realistic and won't lead to any form of disappointment? Because that's the real trick, isn't it? We start to develop expectations with people or with life situations, things that are outside of us. And when they don't come through, there's usually a feeling of pain. And so the pain body becomes active because we want to have those things and they seem to not be appearing. So it activates the pain body. And how can we use this as a tool instead of a vice or something that's a challenge? How can we use this? We're going to jump out of signal for a few seconds here, folks. Happens every time we come through the woods here, so in about 15 seconds we'll be back. Please don't go anywhere. We have a lot to talk about today that I'm sure will be helpful for you. Oh, looks like the signal's solid today. Good. That's unusual. Cool. Welcome, everyone. Jamila, I see you. Welcome. Welcome, Carla, Marianne, Lane, vocalist. I see as the people are coming in, just want you to know that someone sees you. It's a little selfish thing on my part. Just want you to know someone thinks of you and knows that you are an embodiment of infinite intelligence and you're really amazing. and you made it. You have been selected. Not because you're here, but because you're alive. You've been selected for the human life experience. And that is a big lottery win. Big lottery win. Okay, here we go. So, self-empowered RX, thanks for following. What a name. It says a lot. Who else we got here? Oh, okay, Cindy, thanks for joining for the first time. It's really nice. ASMR Shan, great to see you here. You're such a good ASMR artist. You really are so therapeutic. Everyone should go check out ASMR Shan. And I think we caught up with everyone. We even caught up with the birds. Cindy's sending out a bunch of love. That's enough for Link to get his master sword. I say that all the time as my joke. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We need one more there, Cindy. 13 hearts for the master sword, otherwise Link can't pull it out of the ground. I remember that was a big thing. My son got really into Breath of the Wild. Big into Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch. While my daughter was playing Super Mario Odyssey and she got all of the lunas, all of the moons. The kids are really good video gamers, and I remember my son was like, I want to get the Master Sword, but I don't want to go get all these heart containers. Why do I have to get 13 heart containers? That covers it, Cindy. Self-empowered RX says, way to soak up some nature. Thank you. Thanks for joining me in that. So we were looking into the strategy guide, and the way the strategy guide works with Breath of the Wild, wherever you find tutorials online, you have to have 13 heart containers in order to get this Master Sword, in order for you to be able to wield it. And you have to go through like a maze in the woods, and it's convoluted. And that's always the case with the Master Sword. In all of the Zelda games, it's this coveted item. And as soon as you get it, you realize that it has like a shelf life where it breaks if you use it too much. And that was like the main drawback, I think, from Breath of the Wild. And I think my son felt it too. He's like, yeah, I've got all these rare drops, but I really don't want to use them because they're going to break. But you could reinforce the Master Sword with an expansion pack and make it so that it never breaks. And he did that. But we discovered there was a way that you could actually trick and hack through the system so you could get the Master Sword before you had 13 heart containers. And so that was cool. We figured that out and we did it. And I remember when my son, finally got that Master Sword, I was like, dude, that actually worked, It was a hack. You had to carry this wooden stick and it had to be on fire and you had to do a certain movement right around it. And then you could just weasel your way through into the Master Sword's possession. It wasn't meant to be there, but someone figured it out. Someone was wild enough in their movements with the controller to stumble upon it. And that's what happens, We explore in these ways because we want to figure out the hacks, the life hacks, the things that give us these rare drops where otherwise we'd have to work for a very hard time in order to get them. And so what happens is if we remove the expectation, which is, Cindy says, hello, I'm Cindy and I'm just visiting this planet. I love that. And we got some extra hearts coming in, so I can get the Master Sword now. Welcome, Cindy, from wherever you originate from. You are welcome here. So what's really cool is, we have these expectations of things. Okay, I need to have 13 heart containers in order to get the Master Sword. I would like to have a way through this faster because I want to wield this thing that, I can imagine having in my inventory. And so my son and I were figuring out, he doesn't want to get the heart containers. It's not what he enjoys doing. He wants the Master Sword. He wants to go fight against sentinels and get the mirror shield and do some cool stuff, And so we looked into it, and we found out that someone before us had the expectation that they could somehow get this sword without having the 13 heart containers. That somehow it could be gotten without having to go through the linear path. And as soon as he got this user, gamer, figured out how to do it and shared it. So the gamer shared the knowledge. And suddenly everyone's getting the Master Sword. And it suddenly doesn't seem like a big deal anymore. Okay. So there's this perceived value that comes from working hard and having the delayed gratification and going through the grind. Yet at the same time, it's not enjoyable for some people and they want to just go right to that gold and have it. So the question then becomes, can we have expectations for the things that we know we have to work for, in that we can have them sooner? In fact, how soon can we have those things that we really want that otherwise would require some time to get to? An example would be your graduation from college. It could be finding and falling in love and having your love relationship exist as fruitful and perfect. It could be the building and construction of a home. It could be the paying of all of your bills. You know, the expectations are all there that we want these things, and so we're working hard for them, and we go and do our daily grind in order to gain access to these things in a form of delayed gratification. And so what I find is happening in the evolution of human consciousness is that our most recent generations have less patience, and it's not a criticism as much as it's an observation of behavior. We have less patience for the delayed gratification, and we want more instant gratification. And there's a reason for it. Leb says, great analogy. Thanks, Leb. It's so nice to see you. You always say so many kind things, too. You bring so much love to this room. Thank you. You bring love to this world. Jane says, hi on this beautiful Sunday. And Blub is saying hello to Cindy, wherever you were from. I love this, guys. This is all good love. Good love. And so we go through these trials and we work hard for the idea that we can gain access to these things that we desire. And so expectations are basically the feeling that we have some separation from the wish fulfillment and where we are now. And that there needs to be steps in the direction of that thing, whether it's working every day, saving, whether it's going out on a date, or harnessing the courage to take leaps of faith in whatever inventive or creative endeavor that you want to pursue, so that we can get to that goal. And so the question then becomes, is there any part of life where we can meet the expectation in truth and feel it right now? And the only place that I've found, and it may not be valuable to you right now, but it might actually gain value as we go through our broadcast together. The only place I've found that actually gives us that is the imagination. And so in use of the imagination, we gain access to this infinite source of creation. It has no limits, no limitations. It's not restricted by any sort of barrier or border, but we can actually place those restrictions and those borders on those infinite constructs, and we can make as many of them as we want, and we can place as many restrictions as we want on them, and we can do this infinitely through the imagination. So all I'm trying to do is talk to you about how practical it is. The fact that we have access to it right now. We are given access to an infinite playground. And this infinite playground has no restrictions, no limits, unless we impose them. Of course, we impose limits. We put on restrictions because we can't actually have form without them. So how wild is this? That We can't have freedom until we make restrictions. Like, we can't feel the return on investment until there's a foundation that we've built around it. And so all I'm trying to say here in summary is try to remove the foundation of expectation, and instead let's build the foundation of being wish fulfilled. That the expectation goes away and we use the energy that we otherwise would be using to put ourselves at a distance from things. We use that in a different way. We repurpose it to construct an environment of wish fulfillment. There was a pedestrian, so I wanted to get going. We've had pedestrians over these last few days. Just as I get cooking, it's a fun exercise. It puts me to the test. It sees how I can do when I get introduced to unexpected situations. And what I do is I just keep going, and their manifestations are happening for a reason. I may not know the reason. Matthew says 100%. Leb gets it, says yes. User 7125266931689 says the foxes have their holes, birds have a nest, Son of Man has no place. Well, we have our kingdom. That's the thing. You know what's really beautiful about this? Sunflower Goddess Infinite says, peace and blessings, everyone. Peace and blessings to you, Sunflower Goddess. Just to piggyback off of what user 7125266931689 is saying, that can totally be the narrative, you know? Like, this can be your reality, that Son of Man has no place. If that's, in fact, what I'm reading is correct. It could mean something different. It could be a misnomer. It could be you butt-dialed that, you know? More importantly is, how important is that statement to you in your imagination? This is what we're getting to. How important is this statement to you? And then, how important is the statement to me? Well, it's enough for me to pin it so as to let you all know that Jesus of Nazareth himself said that he was a king, but he wasn't a king of this world. That this world was not his kingdom, but rather it was the result of his prayer in his kingdom. It was a result of his anointment in his kingdom. It was a result of him walking through the narrow gates into Christ consciousness that ultimately reflected itself in his world to where he could put his hands on people and he could heal them. He could turn water to wine. He could even resurrect his own body. These things became a narrative in the mind of God through the imagination. So he became the son of creation. And we all become the son of creation with awareness. And we are all the son of creation unbeknownst to us until we recognize that we have a kingdom of heaven within us. I don't want this to be convoluted for you. I want you to understand that every time you exercise the imagination, you're accessing your kingdom. Though many of us access the kingdom in a way that's just for the use of creating time. And when we create time, we create expectations, feeling as if we are at a distance from things. And so all I want you to know is that we can go into the imagination. I want you to know you have permission to go into the imagination now and live from the end as if you are wish fulfilled. So to live with the perfect relationship as fulfilled, to live with the perfect wealth and prosperity as wish fulfilled, to live with the perfect health and mobility as wish fulfilled. That you have the right to do this. Now, the moment that you attempt to share this with anyone, any detail or any part of the practice is what I would consider to be a mistake, unless you are living that wish fulfilled life before you. So in other words, until these wishes that you're living in are answered and show themselves as manifest before you, I implore you I supplicate that you do it in private. And the reason why I say do it in private, do it in secret, is because everything around you has already been labeled through the construction of time. You know that this is a tree only because time provided you the opportunity to label it. Time provided you the opportunity to label the sun, to label who you are, to label your identity as an educated or uneducated individual, limited or limitless individual, but you have to have time in order for these constructs to be given a label. Let's say you take away time, you no longer have a movie. You take away time, you no longer have the pages of a book. So in order for you to label things, you must have time. And time leads us to the expectation of things that is perceived to be at a distance. Janine, thank you for following. So we perceive ourselves to be distant from the things that we desire through the use of time, when we use it unconsciously. However, if we do revisit those moments, let's say we have painful life remembrances, let's say they're challenging, and we wish to transmute them, we wish to move past them, then the idea would be, let's revisit them with consciousness. Let's revisit them with the aliveness that we observe we're alive, and we're going back into this scenario knowingly. We're making a decision to go there, rather than being dragged into it as a performer. We're going in now as a spectator, like Ebenezer Scrooge is brought in to observe his life in A Christmas Carol. It's actually a great analogy because in A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge is shown the past, the present, and the future, yet he cannot interact with any of them. He must be a spectator. The moment that he wants to speak to someone who's there, he's denied that. The moment when he wants to make a change to the environment, also denied that. And so he's being shown how time, in effect, is an illusion or a construct made in his mind, but he's being shown a perspective of time from the vantage point of truth. There are literal gods that are in dominion of these areas that are showing him an unfiltered view of his decision-making skills or lack thereof. And so what we see in our revision of time, when we're truly using it for revision, is we spectate that which is already which has already occurred, the past, or we spectate what could occur, but hasn't already. We spectate these things in order to remove ourselves from them. That's the idea. So, to summarize, if you feel that you're saying no to your present situation, and it's because of something that has been labeled as painful, whether it's being felt in the body, or if it's a narrative that is coming up through a reminder in social media, or in the news, or from a text message, or from work, or from a relationship, whatever this is, if you're getting these notifications to go back and entertain them, a wise thing for your peace and prosperity and health and healing is to go back to that as an observer. Instead of deciding that this is real for you and you're going to participate in it again. There's a difference between the two. Now, if you decide to go back and observe time and your pain remembrances as a spectator, what occurs is you are introducing presence, which is your aliveness, and your recognition that you are here. You're introducing that to a life situation that has been embedded in your body, into the cells. And what it gives the cells is an opportunity to create some distance from that. It no longer feels like it's been plunged into some perilous situation or some stress-based scenario. And this phenomena is called epigenetics. And so through epigenetics, what happens to the cells is whatever you think in your mind. So if you're constructing this time, I usually say to people, if you have a pain remembrance and you want to revisit it because it's so present and it's trying to let you know that it's active in your pain body, is to just observe. You can say to yourself, I am observing pain. Or you don't even have to label it as pain. I'm just observing aliveness. This aliveness comes in a multitude of forms, endless forms, but I'm observing it. And the moment that you start to observe it, you can start to listen to other things. So I'll stop yapping. And I want to just first comment. Vaughn says, hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hello, Vaughn. Happy Sunday. User 928-172-007-862 asks, can you color your teeth black with a marker? Yeah, it's about these things. It's like, that's important to user 928-172-007-862. But is it important to me? It's like, I don't know. I suppose this is coming up from all the moments I used to spit spitballs at my teacher in school. I guess this is like its return on investment. And now I'm not regretting that I did that when I was younger, but I'm seeing the results. The harvest is coming through. And a nameless troll who's saying things that make no sense nor have any place that I'm giving attention to. All the same. Well, let's not perpetuate that any longer. Anyway, let's see. Lana, thank you for following. I got Janine and Vortex1414, thanks for following. And user 377486754755870, thank you for following. Great, we're caught up. I'm glad it made you laugh, Pelios. You know, there are folks who do that. It used to be, and still to a certain extent, an aesthetic thing for the Japanese, especially Japanese women. They used to get these sacks of octopus ink, and you would get all the endorphins from the ink, but it would also stain your teeth, and it was considered a symbol of attraction. Also, Chinese would do it. You see it actually demonstrated in a film, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You'll see it as an example, that it was considered attractive. Yeah, so I guess you can do that. User blah, 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 without a name. It's okay. It's probably closer to your liberation from self to not have a name and just have a number. Makes you kind of like a prisoner, right? But at least you can realize that you're a prisoner. They're just a number. When we give ourselves names, it kind of sets the illusion that we're not prisoners. Right? Let's say hello to a tree. DP7, thank you for following. Most of the trolls who come in here usually don't realize what they're getting themselves into, which is awakening. And that's the best part. You stumble upon awakening through a vagabond in the woods who's putting his hand on a tree, wondering how that could be. Well, today's the day. Enjoy. Enjoy it. It's free. Just required a little stumbling is all it were. All it was, all it were. A little stumbling. So all I'm doing right here, if folks want to know, it's not a hippie thing to do this as much as it's practical. There are electrons being released from the Earth's surface being negatively charged, the core of the Earth being positively charged. So think of it like the center of the Earth is an atom and its nucleus is in the core, and the valence electrons are on the outside. That would be the surface of the Earth. So we, as positively charged beings, are coming in contact with that negative charge, receiving some of these electrons through these antennae that are trees. And then from there, our environment or ionosphere, the atmosphere, is positively charged. And we happen to be sitting right in the middle. We're right in the middle of these two very powerful charges. Vaughn says, I ground daily. This is amazing, Vaughn. It's a very good practice. Lovely Lotus Design says, intense at times. It can certainly be intense. The way I find it on this day, it will be more intense on colder days, and there's a reason for it. So thermogenesis is an interesting phenomena. When you have colder temperatures, the silica in the body, which is piezoelectric, so collagen, your ligaments, your bone, your DNA, your cell membranes, these are all made in part with silicon dioxide. And it is piezoelectric, which means if you put it under any mechanical stress or temperature change, then it has a difference. It makes a difference on the voltage of your body and the electricity that comes and goes through it. So what we're trying to do, why intense, Leslie asks. So we're going to get to that right now. It's a good question, Leslie. I guess we could define intensity as a narrative, as an increase of electric current. I'll give you a physical example of this. So here I have in my hand, let's try to get in the sun so you can see this well. Let's see. Notice I'm not the best cameraographer, but okay, that should work. Yeah, that will work. This is a combination hematite and red jasper stone. And it's been smoothed out from who knows how many years of a stream running over it, also known as alluvial deposits. And so this has a natural termination and a point on both sides. I have my fingers on them right here. You could also consider it being this way too. So it has 4 termination points in a crystal. But these are the highest, or the longest distance between them would be these axis points. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a slight mechanical stress or pressure on the stone. And what it does is it creates a slight bit of voltage through a phenomena called piezoelectricity or piezoelectricity. And that electric charge releases ions or negative electrons or into the body through the surface of the skin, the pores. And the mechanical stress from my bone structures and the ligaments, also containing cryptocrystalline silica, also generates a charge. Now, what's really wild about this is that thermogenesis through quartz, it's more intense under cold temperatures, but it also generates more heat. So the intensity is the generation of currency or current and heat. And since we're in an environment that's cold right now, this stone, which is being subject to the cold, is constantly dropping in temperature. However, if I place this in my pocket and I put mechanical stress there and I hold it there for a period of time, what ends up happening is the charge increases because it's cold and because I'm giving it mechanical stress, but it also increases the temperature through thermogenesis. As the thermogenesis increases in my pocket, the stone has a byproduct of radiating more heat, but at the same time, its electric current goes down because it's warmer. When you have something that is warmer, its electric current goes down. When it's colder, it increases. Okay? So it's kind of a phenomena. It's a hand warmer because it's cold. It's introducing cold, allowing there to be a stronger current. Thus, thermogenesis increases. And when I stick it in my pocket, I get all the warmth. I put more mechanical pressure there. I make use of whatever cold is left in the stone until my hand warms. And then it radiates heat. And as soon as there is enough radiant heat coming from the stone from my mechanical stress, the pressure I'm putting on the stone, I simply pass it to the other hand. Now, I have cold ligaments and cold silica coming from my hand, which increases the charge, transfers the heat into the stone, it absorbs it, and warms this hand. So I have a natural hand warmer. And I'm also getting the therapeutic benefit of the electrons being released from the stone into my body. So I get the mood elevation from that, and that's why people work with stones. It's not because so much it's a spiritual thing as much as it's a practical thing. When you're working with stones, you're working with electricity, you're working with piezoelectric charge and current, and you're working with thermogenesis, which in effect is like a hand warmer that provides a therapeutic effect. So all these benefits come from working with the stone. That would be intense, depending on the situation. So that's what I refer to as intensity. Yep, that's what I refer to as intensity. River rock, says Jim. That's what this is. This is an alluvial deposit, which comes from a stream. In fact, we can go look at an alluvial deposit. Let's go look at one now. I'll show you what it's all about and how it works. You're welcome, Leslie. You're welcome, Amanda. People are grateful for the explanation. It took me some time. I had to do a lot of inquiry because I knew that I was working with healing stones for a good number of years, but I wanted to know the science behind it. I wanted to know, is there an electric charge being released from this? Am I receiving electrons from this? How is this therapeutic? How does this work? And so once I figured out that stones, quartz in particular, are piezoelectric and also are thermogenic or provide thermogenesis. There's another word for it. I can't think of it right now. Once I realized that, I said, okay, how can I apply this to the body? How does this relate to the physical body? How can I tie this in? And how can I do the same thing without the stones? So let's go take a look at an alluvial deposit. I'll show you a stream. It should be running today. And we'll do a little bit of rock hounding, and I'll show you how some of this works, okay? Blessed, thank you for following. And Ada, or Adai in the life, a day in the life. You see how I said that? It finally got it. It took me 3 tries. A day in the life. Thanks for following. Leb, thank you for your kindness and saying well explained. Let's get to this. Martha, thank you for following. All right, so we're going to go over to a stream, and I'll show you what an alluvial deposit is. In fact, we might actually have some nice discoveries because there's been a lot of landslide and a lot of movement because of weather changes. We might actually see a renewal of deposits here. Oh yeah, it's really flowing today. This is great. You'll see in just a moment. It's flowing pretty well. All right, let's get over here. Okay. Switch the camera. Micah Sweet Lemon, thanks for following. And welcome, everyone. Right off the bat here, this is a nice big fat yellow jasper. So let's talk about jasper. I just showed you what a red jasper looks like with some hematite. That would be this stone. You can see the red hues. That's coming from ferrous oxide or iron. Iron inclusions darken and redden. And in this case, we might have some copper blending with other minerals, but it all depends on what we find in inspection. But this is a large jasper, which means it's cryptocrystalline. This is a stone that you cannot see the crystals on the outside, sparkling or separated. You'd have to look at it under a microscope, and that's what separates it from quartz. Anytime you're getting into the jasper range, we're talking about agates. And anytime you hear someone talking about agates, they're simply referring to something that is cryptocrystalline, which is very small crystal. But it's still quartz. It's still made of silicon dioxide or silica, okay? Evelyn Reed, thank you for following. Let's keep looking here, see what else we can find here. Seeing a lot of cool stuff going on, but we're gonna explore. Let's hop over here and have a look at what we can find. Pull back the camera a little bit so it's not so wild for you. There we go. Okay, so as you can see here, there's a bit of a split here, but we have running water, okay? So this running water, whether it's gravity fed or if it's from melting of ice and snow and rain, when we're talking about alluvial deposit, we're talking about something that comes from rain. So lluvia in Spanish means rain. We got a question coming in from A Day in the Life. Is red agate the same as jasper? Yes. This red agate, so what is the difference between jasper and agate? The only difference is that this stone is opaque, which means you cannot see through it with light. It's still cryptocrystalline, but you can't see through it. So that makes it jasper. It's still an agate. So jasper technically is an agate, okay? You just can't see through it. Free Spirit says it won't let me follow. It's okay. It's all for a reason. Yellow jasper is just another form of agate that is opaque, which means you can't see through it. Okay, so it looks like there's not much here because there's a lot of leaves, but if we were to look underneath here, you'll see any number of stones. This would be a deposit of stones from rainfall and from snow, and we got something here. Cool. Let's wash this off and have a look. This is rock hounding. Oh, we got another one. Do you see it, folks? I wonder if you can see it. It looks to be a Super 7 amethyst. Or bloodstone. Look at that. That's either a Sacred 7 amethyst or that is a bloodstone. Let's have a look at it. Right here. Very cool. Oh yeah, this is a Sacred 7. You can tell it's a Sacred 7. It gives you this hue of oranges, yellows, purples, and reds, and then a quartz base. This is a healing stone. And this is a very powerful healing stone, believed to only have been found in Brazil, but I've found a great number in this stream here in Connecticut. This is a Sacred 7 amethyst that we've just found on the fly. And it's a real nice one because you can see these termination points. Oop, excuse me. You can see these termination points. You can really get a good grip on them and send some charge into the body. In fact, the smaller the stone, the stronger the charge in some instances. Look at that. Look at those inclusions. This is a beauty. This is in Connecticut. This is an alluvial deposit, and this is a Sacred or Super 7 amethyst stone. It has citrine, which is the orange. It has carnelian, which is the red. It has amethyst, which is a purplish type of quartz. It has quartz. And then there are two others that I'm not getting in my memory right now, but this is a Sacred 7 or a Super 7 amethyst. And it was right on the surface of the alluvial deposits of this stream. Really nice. Yep, they're all together exactly, Haidit. That's what makes it the Sacred 7. You get all of those healing stones in one. And it's considered a form of amethyst that's only found in Brazil. However, in this particular area where I am in Connecticut, I have found dozens of these. They're quite common, actually. And they're very powerful. You could have this faceted into a cabochon. This could be a beautiful cabochon. And you could wear it as a ring on your ring finger, or you could wear this on your Saturn finger for balance. You could do a lot with this. A Day in the Life asks to be sent one. If you folks like these things and you want me to do rock hounding, I've got so many that I'm happy to send them. I mean this. If you feel like you need to heal, we'll figure it out one way or another. Your Saturn finger is your middle finger, Lime Opal. It's your middle finger. Yeah, Haida, thanks for following. Let's take a look at this other stone that just popped up I was looking at. This looks like it's just a standard quartz, though it could actually be a citrine. Let's have a look. Citrine's just another form of quartz. Oh, I see a small one here. I'll have to take a look in the sunlight. You see, you can come across different forms of emerald here. You know, the smaller of the stones. You can also come across sapphires. It all depends on the hardness of the stone. This here, it's got some reds going on. It stood out to me. It was pointing itself out to me. So it's nice to have the sunlight today because we can see refraction and we can see inclusions. It's just a standard quartz, I'd say. Yeah, you find that all over the place. But more importantly is we have this nice collection of deposits that's constantly washing out. And what it does is it washes out from its surroundings. You can see it's hilly on both sides. So when it rains, all of the heavy stones come in and then they get washed. And so they're being tumbled constantly in this area. Well, look, so here's the Sacred 7 at a distance. You can see those purples coming through now. And we'll come over to the light so you can see a difference. But yeah, let's see, there, you can really start to see the purples coming through now. And then, of course, as we change the direction of the stone, you'll see the citrine. Yep, this is a very good for if you're doing chakra work or kundalini work. The Sacred Seven's a good one. Good one to work with. Nikki, thanks for following. Dawn says, what kind of stones are in Texas? Would I find any? You could pretty much find, yeah, Texas is a big state. Essentially, it's a country in itself as far as size. So you know what I suggest to people is, when it comes to this type of thing, rock hounding or rock hunting, just go with an open mind and the mind of a child expecting to receive something divine. And it always shows truth in that way. So just go to a stream. You know, in this case, it's a stream that you can visit, and they'll usually tell you in your state which parks you can go visit. And they'll say within reason, you know, don't take too much. But if you're going to take a stone, take within reason. There's also rock hounding clubs where they pay to have access to places that you normally would not be invited into. So if you go to a rock show, you can talk to those people. They're usually really good with the regulations and know what it is you can do versus not. But this space where I am right here is very sacred, and it's also, if I'm taking something, I usually give back in some way. That's just what I do. That's like kind of a rule. So let's have a look. And I usually will just take from whatever I find on the trail when I'm walking. But if I see something that can heal people, I'll give it as a gift. And it's all coming from the earth, so that's what's beautiful about it. All right, so these are some more deposits, but if we go further, you can see there's quite a bit of obstruction up there from a lot of felled trees. So it looks like our journey upstream is going to end here. I'm not going to go too crazy today, but we'll go check out one other area. And like I said, let's just sift through here. This looks like it could be an amethyst. It's either an amethyst or it is a smoky quartz. Let's wash it. Let's wash it off. Amethyst is a great stone for healing. It's a great healing stone. This has some eventurescence on one side, which is a sparkle. But we get a lot of the same type of inclusions. Looks like there's some iron that found its way in there. This could be a bloodstone. Find a lot of iron deposits in this area, in this region. Leb says, be sure it's the right kind of rock show. That's funny. Dawn says, I'm so glad I found you. Thank you for the information. You're most welcome, Dawn. A day in the life sent to PM. Okay, thank you. I'll check it. I'll check it for sure. Let's go have a look at one other area that I find is very beautiful and is usually filled with a lot of fun stuff. And then we'll keep our walk going. Hey, Veda, good to see you. Veda, I love your content. And I love your live streams. They're so relaxing. Really nice. I don't know if it categorizes as ASMR, but it's healing sound. And so I enjoy your broadcasts. All right, let's hop over. There we go. Hey, Tammy, thank you for that. Heart me. Veda says, sound healing / ASMR hybrid. Haha. All right, I nailed it. Good. Good. All right, let's have a look here. Let's see what's going on. So this would be a hematite right here. It's a big fat hematite with some yellow jasper. And here's a nice spot for doing some picking and just looking around. You'll see that up above there's a little hill, and then there's a wash off. Okay, there goes the stream, and this is the wash off right here. So this spot right here is where you'll likely see a lot of the heavier stones kind of being squeezed out. And you want heavier stones because they usually are gemstones. So it's a good place to look for gemstones, would be right here. I see some red jasper right here. It could be red jasper. Let's get it clean and see what it looks like. Yeah, that sure does look like it. This is a nice red jasper. This is a good healer. That's a good healing stone right there. Look at that. You could turn this into a little altar for incense or for feeding birds. Very nice energy coming in from the red jasper. What do we have here? Looks like some quartz. This looks like it could be, yeah, just a standard quartz. Rojo, thanks for following. And so, speaking of giving back, this is just a little collection of stones that I found, and I would come here and sit and just organize them and pray or meditate and imagine things manifesting. And as you can see, all around it, this moss started to grow. It was picking up on all of the vibe from these healing stones. These healing stones may not look like much to you from here, but if we were to wet them, which I'll do for you. Yeah, this is a good healing spot right here. You'll see the color come with water. Okay, so there you go. There's a variety of jaspers and quartz, agates, just nice healing stones. So put them here. This is a nice Super 7 right here. That's a big one. It's a big chunk of amethyst, Sacred 7 amethyst. It's a biggie. The idea here is, yeah, just to have a nice spot for healing, and you can see that life is proliferating around it. So it should say something about the healing quality of these stones that they carry with themselves through these negative electrons, or the negative ions, free electrons, have an impact on life. Of course, they have nice access to the sun, and the calm and undisturbed nature of this area makes for a good living environment. What do we have here? You see that green stone in there? Let's have a look at that. See what that's all about. What do we got here? Looks like a potato. Yeah, it's just a quartz with some moss on it. A Day in the Life says it's nicely piled up for you to find it. Yeah. Just little stones that I found, I put in a pile there for meditation. Darlene, thanks for following. Potato quartz, asks Leb. Indeed. Oh, Lime Opal asks, what energy does petrified wood have? So petrified wood is a great healing stone. Very good for the physical body and preservation of health. Petrified wood is a really good one for spiritual work. Very powerful stone. What do we got here? That could be an amethyst. Let's have a look. That one was hanging out. Let's have a look at it. Oh, I think I see some obsidian. Maybe. All right. This looks like it's smoky quartz. I don't know. What are your opinions, folks? It's semi-transparent. Could just be standard quartz. Let's see if this is obsidian. I could be wrong. Oh. Yeah, I'm wrong. But that's okay. It could be basalt. But I thought it was. You can find a lot of obsidian in Mexico for sure. Look at this moss. Look at all that moss. Let's get a nice close-up. They look like forests. There are tons of water bears living in there. That's a good amount of moss right there. Nice and soft. Very soft. Beautiful. On this cold day. Stephelia asks, what region is this? This is New England, Connecticut. Connecticut, New England. Yeah, believe it or not, you can find quite a bit of cool stuff here, cool stones. I'm just hounding now. What do we got over here? What do we got over here? What are you doing here? Who are you? Looks like quartz. Yep. Oh, we got a little mollusk there. So put that back, not to disturb our friend. So I'm going to take us for a quick shortcut, or detour, I should say, over to an area that I find is quite energetic and beautiful with stones. Driver Chris, thanks for following. A Day in the Life says, been looking for rough stones, not much luck finding what I want. Keep imagining what it is you want. Remember, this is what we talk about regularly. We talk about this regularly. So we become what we think about. All right, I see a spot we're going to head to now. Let's go through here. Cold day here in New England. It's probably 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Decent wind. Yesterday we were at almost 60 degrees, so it's noticeable. This is a very beautiful place where we're going to now, where I sit and often contemplate for hours and just take in the sights and the free electrons. So let's do that. There's a nice quartz. Very peaceful. Tiffany says, "Hi, what are we doing?" We are just exploring alluvial deposits today. Taking a look at things in nature. That's a nice quartz with some iron inclusions, some purple. Make a wish. I see some chalcopyrite. There's some chalcopyrite. Very nice. This is a good abundance stone. Good for attracting abundance. Tara says, hello from Kansas City. Hello, Tara. Thanks for sharing, Darlene. Cool. And so once again, we have this drop off here, and you're going to see a bunch of erosion occur from this point, and we were just walking above. So what happens is, as it rains and as the temperature changes, we come into summer, big stones are going to get washed out from this wall, all different types. You'll find lots of cool stuff coming from this area right here. Doesn't look like much right now, but if we were to, for example, I'll show you. If we were to take some of this water from the stream, albeit it's cold today, we'll take some of this water and we're gonna just wet some of the stones. It's a good way to discover some things. And you'll see, like, that quartz probably wasn't very visible before, but now it is. It allows others to stand out. They come to life when you get them splashed with water. Anyway, this is a nice place where I like to come and sit. I'll spend however amount of time just contemplating or feeling the peace. And basically what this is scientifically, for those who want to know what the benefit is, all of these stones that are in the stream, they're being weathered down over long periods of time by running water. And as this occurs, the erosion of the stones and the bombardment of water into them release free electrons into the environment. And the free electrons being released into the environment allow there to be a dropping off of impurities. And of course, we receive these free electrons in the body as well, allowing there to be a reduction of free radicals, which improves your health, reduces inflammation, and is very relaxing and calming. So there's a scientific benefit to being around flowing water, especially in the woods, because the trees themselves, these elders, are constantly releasing free electrons from the surface of the earth, which is negatively charged. In fact, there's about negative 500,000 watts pumping out from the surface of the earth. It's a negative charge of about 500,000 watts. It's very powerful. And we are kind of like being inside a car during a lightning storm. Our bodies are electric and allow there to be the filtration of all of this electricity through natural means. See this right here? Let's have a look. Oh. I thought it was a pink quartz. It's white quartz with some ferrous oxide. All right, let's take to the trail. Spoke too soon. Let's look at one more thing here. Let's have a look in the sun. Oops. Yep. Okay. Yeah, this is another Super 7 amethyst. I thought I saw one. Cool. Let's wash it off. Thought I saw one. That's a nice one. A little bit of citrine in there. There it is. It's starting to pop now. But you get those nice deep purple hues. There's more of that citrine. This is a beautiful specimen. Be boldly, love light says, makes sense how HARP was designed after the realization of Earth negative energy fields so they can modify every living creature's something. Rachel, thanks for following. Kelvin Gray, thanks for following. This is a Super 7 or Sacred 7 amethyst. And I love these termination points. So what we can do now, even though my hands are cold and it's cold out, I'm going to create some tension. It's going to tuck down into the fat part of my palm, and I'm going to put some tension on with my thumb and index finger. And this is actually generating heat. It's generating electricity and heat at the same time. Medusa, thank you for following. So as we do this, it's sending a charge through the body. It's very light. It's not a very strong charge, but it's sending a charge. And it's increasing the amount of thermogenesis occurring. And as they get exposed to the cold, the mitochondria migrate to the surface of your skin to warm it. So cold exposure leads to a migration of mitochondria, which are just like power plants. They're furnaces. They're designed, or they're created by infinite intelligence to give you the currency of your life. And they go right to the surface of the hand, and they form into what's called brown fat, brown adipose tissue, or BAT. And that is a more efficient thermogenesis-based fat that increases the resting temperature of your skin, increases your heat, and is a natural warmer that comes from cold exposure. So cold exposure increases thermogenesis. It's the same thing that happens when you're squeezing a cold stone. We as crystals, as human beings, also have increased efficiency with our warmth the more we expose ourselves to the elements that are cold. The more efficient we become as well in its radiation. Very cool, literally. Trace through time and space followed. Thank you. So let's go to the trail now that we are done hounding for the day. I found some Sacred 7 amethyst, and I'm a happy camper. So if there really is interest in this, I just want to get them to you folks. I don't want to benefit or profit from any of this, but I would love to just figure out a way to get you some of these healing stones if you would like them. If you would like to benefit from their properties, we'll figure it out. Try not to make promises lightly, so we'll see. The truth is not a conspiracy. Asks, what kind of stone is that? It's a Sacred 7 or Super 7 amethyst. And the reason why it's called Sacred or Super 7 is because it has 7 types of stones that are all healing stones within one. And so you have amethyst, quartz, citrine, carnelian. I'm forgetting the rest. I got 4 out of 7 this time. I got 5 out of 7 the last time. Someone else can tell me. But it's 7 healing stones in one. Smoky quartz, thank you, high voltage. That's one that I didn't mention before. So you get that smoky quartz. Let's see if we can get it in the light. You can really see it now because the stone is dry. That smoky quartz is popping, but you can see this is the same stone that I held up before, and it had all sorts of colors and arrays. All sorts of color going on. But you can see that smoky quartz now. Leb says 4 out of 7 isn't bad. Thanks, I try. Yep. So that's a good healer. And it's really good for doing spiritual work. It's good to keep by your side, good to keep in your pocket. Good for keeping by you when you sleep. I sleep with amethyst every night. I know that sounds strange. I sleep with large amethyst stones every night. And I have, as a result, very pleasant lucid dreams every night without fail. Yep, but I stay with amethyst on the nightly. Sometimes citrine, but not all the time. Yeah. Lev says sounds mildly uncomfortable, actually. Yeah. I know. I do. I have these 2 very large, very, very large amethyst stones. They're actually worked stones. They're very old. I mean, stones are ancient, but as far as they're being worked as tools, they're either ceremonial amethyst, but there's a whole story behind those, which is wild. Anywho, I rest them on my chest. I fall asleep with them on my solar plexus and my heart center. And I always dream lucid. Okay. High voltage coming through with beautiful knowledge. Thank you for doing this. I thought there was citrine involved, but I could be wrong. Once again, this could be endemic to Connecticut. The specific one that I found could be different, but this is coming in from high voltage. This is great information. This is the composition. It's not letting me pin it. It says you can try again. Okay. It's not letting me pin it. So anyway, amethyst, cacoxenite, goethite, lepidocrite, rutile, smoky quartz, and quartz. And it is my understanding that it is an amethyst. That it is a form of amethyst. How we're going to do this? There we go. So, the one that is here, endemic to this region of Connecticut, does have calcite. Excuse me, not calcite. It does have citrine. Ray says there's a sacred 5 stone as well. It could be that. Now, once again, once we get into the identification of stones, it's very particular. Some people will say that jasper is not agate. Others will swear by it and say it certainly is. So many people will say that agate has to be semi-transparent, cannot be opaque for it to be an agate. And I can understand the reason for it, because people have really just very strong convictions when it comes to agate. They want to be able to see bands. Otherwise, if there's a band and it's opaque, it's considered an onyx. So it's like to each their own. But anyway, Veda says amethyst can turn to citrine. That's very cool. That's over heat, I imagine. This would be a red jasper with hematite. Red jasper with hematite. And this is the hand warmer I brought with me today. It's working really well. It's a good hand warmer. So heat changes amethyst to citrine. This is coming from Veda. This is good information. I did not know that. So heat treating amethyst turns it to this yellowish orange. Very cool. All right, folks, we're hitting the trail now. Super 7s can be found with hematite in them as well, which makes it a Super 8. This is high voltage. This is great stuff. That's really cool. And if you can get yourself one of those, I would say that's amazing. Now look at this from Veda comes in the LA fires. Someone's giant amethyst made citrine. That is wild. That is wild. Yes, Leb says it's very cool, except for the fire part. I agree, but that's unbelievable. Wow. It was an amazing symbol of hope, says Veda. Wow. Wild stuff. Okay, so as we take to the trail now, oh, thanks for that. Whoever sent that over, I want to know who that was that sent that gift. Thank you for that gift. It doesn't say yet. High Voltage Hippie, I think. Thank you for all of your knowledge, High Voltage. It's good stuff. So we did some rock hounding, and we got some free electrons. Let's talk about, once again, we'll return to our discussion of anticipating outcomes, or otherwise known as expectations, okay? So typically we have expectations when we feel ourselves to be at a distance from a desired state, whether it's a thing that we wish to acquire, whether it's healing that we wish to observe with the body. Where are you hounding? Asks High Voltage. In New England. I will not give the particulars simply because I know I'm fine being here, but the people who come by on this trail can be very inquisitive. It's kind of a very small town, and there's not a lot of activity, which can be a really good thing. That said, people are very, I suppose, possessive of this area. Anyway, I come through, I clear the path, I take the sticks off of it. When there are big obstructions, I clear them. And if I happen to see a nice stone on the path, I'll take it home. No harm, no foul. I looked it up. See me justifying? I looked it up. It's technically not a state forest. So, High Voltage says, I live on 9 acres in Massachusetts. I imagine you have some alluvial deposits there. Probably some wild agates. What a nice gift to have that. We are neighbors, just about. That's great, High Voltage. Tony says, I often find large stones that are magnetic. Those would be lodestones. And those are really special. Lodestones are extremely powerful because they can charge other stones, and they can also charge magnets. And they never run out of their charge. That's really cool. I mean, it doesn't mean it's a lodestone, but it could be. If you can find one, it's very valuable. And they're also extremely therapeutic. Very good at healing the body. To be around a constant source of magnetism from the earth. Good stuff. The truth is not a conspiracy, says selenite, right? Yes, this is where we actually talked about selenite. This is another synchronicity. Oh, I love that. I love when we have our synchronicity markers. The discussion was maybe 10 days ago. There was a specific statement about selenite right here. And when we were talking about stones, selenite is a very easygoing stone that can be used for setting an intention for prayer or setting an intention for meditation and balancing the body. It's a good place to start. Would be with a selenite wand. A lot of Reiki practitioners use them. They'll basically just go through the energetic field, your biofield, with one and set everything right for healing transmission. So it's a good one. Cami Podensky, thanks for the follow. Tony says, yes, North Pole reduces swelling. South Pole increases circulation. Better note this, folks. This is really good stuff. Tony is mentioning finding a number of magnetic stones, and that if you find a lodestone, It's a very special stone to have because it maintains its magnetic charge consistently and actually can charge other things. So if you do have one, the North Pole charge reduces swelling and the South Pole increases circulation. Beautiful. Really good stuff I hadn't known before that I am absorbing now. But a selenite wand is a good place to begin for your spiritual practice. It's a very calming, easygoing stone that I find. Also, folks, we shouldn't neglect the fact that quartz is everywhere. So if you find yourself a nice milky quartz, it doesn't even have to be clear quartz. Milky quartz is great to work with. Just put it in your hand, keep it close to your body, put one in your pocket. It's the most abundant stone that you can find on planet Earth. It's everywhere. You can go look in your backyard. If you have a backyard, you can go look even in cities. When you're going through gravel parking lots, or if you're if you're going through like a driveway area and you see stones, you can find quartz anywhere. It's so abundant, and it's a great healer. So keep that in mind. Tony says, I have a full study on effect of magnets can increase healing 20%. This is great, Tony. Why don't you drop your details for anyone who's interested in knowing more? I'm sure there are folks in the room who would like to learn from you. So please note this, folks. Tony's got this. That's great. That's terrific. I'm sure it's powerful. I'd love to hear more about it. Forum is open. Okay, so we are talking about magnetism here, which is a good segue. And when we're talking about magnetism, we have to discuss that magnetism cannot exist without two fundamental things. One being you have to have polarity, which is to say on one end you have to have a North Pole, on the other end you have to have South Pole. One side is charged negative, the other side is charged positive. And what this does is it creates an attraction, a force of attraction that is magnetic. So opposites attract. Perhaps you've heard that before. This is no exception when it comes to magnetism. And you need to have that in order for the magnetic charge to exist. Okay, so if we know that we have to have polar opposites at play in order for there to be magnetism or attraction, then what would be the purpose in doing that? Let's say if one is positive and the other is negative, why would they be encouraged to come together? And why would there be an increase of force if they were to be opposing one another in their attraction? Well, there's a big part to this that has to do with the infinite intelligence that gives you consciousness. So you have a waking life right now, your body is moving, or it's not, but it is. Nothing's fully at rest. Anything that is in the physical world has some sort of movement. And this is done intentionally. Anything subject to this physical world has a timeline, a beginning, middle, and end. In order for that to happen, it must be moving at all times. It must have entropy, moving towards a place of destruction, in order to have renewal, moving into a place of rebirth. So we have these poles, right? And they're attracted towards one another. And what happens is when they join together, in all instances of evolution and manifestation of the desires that we want, the polarity coming together in unification creates something greater than the sum of its parts. So we're looking to create something that is greater than the opposition. We're looking to create something that is greater than being at odds, because being at odds will always be there. We're even looking for something that's beyond just the attraction that comes from the polar opposites being drawn toward one another. We're looking for their total unification in order to see something greater be expressed. And what we see is this in everything that is creation, in every cell that is created. And we'll get into this science so that you can better understand how it's happening with your own physical body. To understand how your heart is 5,000 times more magnetic than your mind. It is a huge lodestone. It's a vortices of electromagnetic power that either is moving in the direction of pushing things away, or it is moving in the direction of attracting things into your life. That polarity depends on how you see and perceive this game of life. See the origin of all things created as part of you through a kingdom that is within you, and you become the lodestone. You are attracting these things to you. See yourself as subject to this environment outside of you, and you will repel all things that you once wished for and cared about. Now, of course, there are exceptions on both sides, but the rules are general in that they function in this way consistently. If you are thinking about having something, you feel it, you experience it, you know it to be true, then the forces of magnetism are drawing it into your life. Once it gets close enough to where it feels the field of opposites, it is drawn with greater force and it comes in speeding its way to you. Just like a magnet has a little bit of a wiggle to start, and then boom, as soon as that force is acting upon it in truth, it is drawn in to unification and it expresses itself as something greater. Okay? So when we're talking about this, thank you for the roses, Tony. When we're talking about this, all it is how do we turn this light switch on, or the switch of polarity, to where we are attracting the things that we desire and not just repelling the things that we don't desire, but we're not even thinking about it because we've become something greater through the unification of all things. We're looking for the unification of all possibilities. And the only place we can enter into the realm of infinite possibility is in the imagination. This is why I talk about it so frequently. The imagination is the only limitless, boundless place that you can explore without any sort of restriction instantaneously, and the cells of your body feel the result. All right, so think of it, well, Tony says, think of it in the past tense. Before then, that's a good question. Who was the one that said we don't need science for everyday living? Says A Day in the Life. The 2K Tournament 25 followed. Araceli did too. Thank you. Sarah Awake, thanks for the rose. Let's get into this because it's we have to dispel, or we should dispel, the idea of time, or at least identify what it is. And once we can get to the identification of what time truly is, then we can start to understand what true manifestation requires. Okay? So let's get to the sun over here. We got a question coming in. Do we have a question coming in? Oh, we're good. All right. So let's explore, what is time? How do we define time? Think of time as a construct, which is something that we build. Because we can't have the past right now, because this is the present moment. You're observing present moment unfolding before you. Okay? If we want to go into the past, we have to use the imagination to construct a foundation for it to work. That foundation is, we believe that we are stepping in to a fragment of time, and we are entertaining it. We do it so often and so naturally that we often don't even see it. But if you're going to a text message, you're looking into the past. If you're going into thinking what if scenarios, you're actually going into the future. But in order for us to go into the past or to go into the future, what we have to do first is we have to agree to construct it. And the way that we agree to construct it is we must use the imagination for its building. So it's a wild thing that we do naturally. We do it so frequently, we do it so unconsciously, that we would believe the past to be something that is real, and we would believe the future as well to be something that is real. However, unless it is expressing itself through us in the now, it is not in fact true. The only truth that we experience is that which is unfolding before us right now. Everything else is constructed through the imagination, and that's fine. The past serves a purpose. The purpose of the past is for us to define things and label things, to give meaning to things. And the reason why we give meaning to things through time is because innately, inherently, we as identified beings Our name, our collection of life experiences, everything we've ever felt, our education, the color of our skin, the language that we speak, where we were born, our parents, where we, blah, blah. All this goes on. All of our life situations, all of our identifying traits, all come through the construction of time. If you don't have time, then you cannot spend it on the creation of story. Our lives are a big, long story. And the story began first with, I observe I am alive. Work with me. You were born on day one. Before you could understand, I'll speak on my behalf. Before I could understand what William meant, everyone's saying William or Billy over here. But before that had any sort of register with me, I was just observing things, trying to make sense out of it. I had a feeling of aliveness. There seems to be a body of sorts, though I still don't even know what a body is until I'm shown what it is. I'm essentially an alien living in a body trying to figure it out through the defining of things, okay? So after enough time of being told my name, which is a string of frequencies that sound like Billy or William, I started to associate that if I responded to that, I would somehow be rewarded. First time I'm rewarded, it's a bunch of applause. Yay, he responded to his name. He knows his name. Great, Billy knows his name. That's awesome. And then I started to respond to, oh, Billy's reading. Billy's eating. He is drawing a picture. He's playing with letters and numbers. He's made a friend. He's riding a bike. Billy is making his own food. Billy's got a girlfriend. Billy's going to college. Billy's getting married. Did you know Billy's going to have a kid? Yeah, I know. It happened so fast. Isn't that wild? And so the bottom line is this. All of these life situations and experiences would not be possible without the construction of time. I, too, as an identity, could not explain this to you without constructing some form of time, to explain to you a linear sequence of life events. The truth of the matter is, these things we assign upon ourselves. I decide through my imagination that this is my identity. I decide through my imagination that these are my life experiences. I decide that this frequency, when sent in a sequence, is either offensive, you're a jerk, I don't like you, that's offensive, I've defined that. I love you, I care for you, I wish for you, all good things. I decide that's a good sequence of frequencies, but at the end of the day, I'm applying labels to all of these sounds. All of these sounds are getting labels. And they form into an identified self over time through its entertainment. But it does not exist as real until we give it its reality. And the way we give it its reality is we construct time for its revisitation. The revisitation of the glossary of definitions that have created us as beings, to revisit the glossary of all meaning, requires the use of the imagination, and we do it so naturally, so automatically, so autonomously, that we believe it to be all we are, everything that we are. Now, I am here to explain to you that you are something more than this collection of life experiences. If the example hasn't convinced you enough to know that you were born before you were a name, let's go back even further to the origin of your aliveness, the origin of your conscious experience. You were, at one point in time, like every human being on this planet, a sperm. There's no exception. Men and women, we all came as a little tadpole, and we were a key that decidedly fit the cosmic egg of all creation to accept us and bring us into being. When we join with this cosmic egg, and even before, magical things are happening. The acrosome from the head of the sperm has a direct interaction with the zona pellucida of the egg, and Hormones are released between the two, saying you are the exclusive one who has been selected for this lottery win. While the rest are trying to drill through, incessantly make their way to the center, it is a moot point. You are the number one choice out of hundreds of millions that could potentially be here on this day to fertilize this egg. That is you. That is all 7.9 billion of us scientifically decided upon. And we go into the egg. We drop off our body, the tail goes away, and we float into the center of this cosmic egg. And we germinate. And we sit there for about a half an hour in contemplation of what we've done. After all of this perilous journey, we have arrived at the center of all creation, and we have made it. And we know that we are about to be delivered the greatest of promises in the form of wish fulfillment, that we become what we think about. A big flash of light occurs. For the sperm, it's big. It's a flash of light from a release of zinc that was carried with for the entire travel, from the moment of ejaculation through the fallopian tubes to the egg itself. After a half an hour of this conception occurring, this release of zinc creates a flash of light. And I believe, this is only my own narrative, but I do believe it's the most appropriate time when this infinite intelligence in the form of consciousness enters into being and starts to proliferate and divide our cells. After 24 hours, we start to experience cellular division. Then after that, we form into a blastocyst. And after that, we form into the human body that is the amalgamation of 50 trillion cells with 100 trillion atoms in each and every one of those cells. So we're talking about a massive amount of atomic potential. We're talking about a massive amount of intelligence that is required for the formation of the body into the human that we are. This vessel of God, this vessel of infinite intelligence, is extremely complex, and it is infinite in its expression and ability to heal and proliferate, as well as turn into disease, if that's our desire. But the bottom line is, we as conscious beings are the first cell. It's very important. Because we are the first cell, the combination of sperm and egg, this makes us the captain of the ship, the king or queen of the kingdom within. Every cell is born and dies from us and cycles for us in order to preserve our kingdom. This is a very big gift. It's a huge revelation to make. Because the moment that we understand that we are more that intelligence, that aliveness as consciousness, than our collection of life experiences formed into an identity, the more we come into being to understand that life, our beautiful life that we believe is everything that we fight for, we go to war for, we kill for, we betray for, we're indifferent for, truly is just the smallest of iotas in comparison to the truth of our being. That we are, in fact, a large corner of the universe, walking and wishing things into creation. So I want us to come into that feeling of kingdom, that it's not something outside of ourselves. And the moment we start to understand that the kingdom of heaven is within us, that is literally being generated from an intelligence that loves us so much that it stays together in the form of a body, we can start to understand that we are attracting this into our lives. Just as we attracted ourselves to the cosmic egg, we are attracting this infinite power into being. And once you start to understand this, the magnetism of life for your desire gets aligned with your truth in being through the imagination, which is you are wish fulfilled, you are abundant, you are healthy, you are mobile, you are loved, you are protected, you are wish fulfilled. This is your truth. Every cell in your body says this to you, every moment of time and space. Unless we strangle it into sickness, unless we wrestle it into submission to die for us and never come back, it will continue to serve us with an immortal principle of aliveness and care. Okay. B Boldly says, I felt the energy shift. I'm going to go all the way back here. I see people saying things and I want to catch up. I love you all. I'm glad that we find truth in these discussions, because no scientists or religious zealot or anyone in between, atheists included, can truly deny that we come from sperm and egg. And it's very simple. It's very basic. But what we don't see is how powerful that is, what that truly means. If we are trillions of cells that came from one, what does this say about our worth? And what does this say about our truth and wealth? What does this say about our ability to remain alive and well? What it speaks to is massive as far as human potential through this intelligence. It tells us that we're so much more than our collection of life experiences. Ocean PM says, it's really unnecessary to put a narrative to your life. That's what this guy does. And so, Ocean, I can see some truth in this. You know, I want to coincide with you in this discussion. In a way, I'm telling you my belief of what our origin of story is. You could say, you know, really it's just a story. We don't really know that we come from sperm and egg. The thing is, I would rather be called out as wrong in leading people to believe that they come from an infinite source of creation than to be wrong in saying I'm trespassing upon people by giving them freedom. And I think that's where we have a crossroads. And you're also speaking about me as if I'm not here speaking to you. Beyond that being disrespectful, it shows how much of a disrespect you have for life as human. Because if you truly understood that I am alive, just as you are, speaking to you from my home, this is my home, then you would understand yourself to be a guest in my home, so as not to speak about the owner of the home in a form of gossip with others who are here. It's extremely disrespectful. That's how I feel. You may think it's respectful from the planet that you come from, but here on Earth, if you were to be a Native American, let's just say we're Native Americans, you'd be sent out into the woods for a few weeks to contemplate your gossip and your judgment of others. And you might learn how to live on your own. You might figure it out. Maybe not. Maybe you would want the comforts of coming back. Ocean says, in a judgment, I detect tension in your narrative now that wasn't present before. This is a narrative. And the question then becomes, who is creating this? Is this being caused by someone who's speaking to you from outside of you? Is that what you're detecting? Right, you're only making an observation, but it's not just an observation. Tension is a state of being. That's a judgment. And right now, you are ego by saying tension. That's not aliveness, because aliveness is intense. Aliveness gives, aliveness expands, and aliveness does what you say, it observes. But it doesn't judge and it doesn't label. You've done it twice now, and so have I. But I'm not the one who is admitting that I am enlightened. I'm not saying anything about your current state other than when I fall into a performance. And I can admit that I'm in a performance. You can't. That sets us apart. If you can admit that you're coming in, playing a role, making judgments, then we can find a common ground. Because that allows there to be humility to enter the space. And humility will turn whatever tension you may be perceiving as an identified being into something that is loving, compassionate, and restorative, not only for yourself, but for everyone who perceives themselves to be co-creating with you right now in this space. And that is a choice. I'll tell you, we will probably branch if that doesn't happen. Yes, we are just dancers on the stage of life. I'm with you, Ocean. I think that's good. You know, all the world's a stage and we're merely players. However, we are also the aliveness that allows us to have a body to dance. That's all I'm trying to bring to the forefront. Before we get lost in narratives and judgments of each other, it's to understand that we're being fed this aliveness to have the discussion, that there should be some reverence for that. You don't have to have reverence for it. I do. I've talked about its grandiosity. I've talked about its origins. I've talked about its unity and its expansive principle. I've talked about how it cares and dies for us all the time so that we can have basic conversations and turn our lives into a simplistic, linear life experience. Does it all the same, continues to serve us all the same, doesn't abandon us. Consciousness wakes us every morning, and it carries us into a perfect dream state every night. However it's determined or labeled, it's still a departure and a birth that we're granted every day by this intelligence, and I see that as extremely valuable. Yeah, so this is good. We got a bunch of stuff happening. Grand Rising from Rebella. I didn't mean to laugh, says Veda. I forget when this... Do you consider time to be fourth dimension? We got good questions coming in. That's from Leb. Came out of alignment from Divine Mother. Very linear thinking from Cunnilingus. So whatever it is, we can all recognize that they are life situations, right? We can conclude that however we are defining and observing things, for all of us, they are unique and they are life situations. And that we are using infinite power to define them and entertain them. And we don't have to go as far as to decide whether they're good or bad, but we can recognize that what we're using is our infinite power to create these scenarios, right? So in doing that, we start to come back into our power. And some days are going to be, like I said before, very bright, and we'll have nice blue skies, and then they'll be overcast other days. And just yesterday it was 60 degrees. Today it's 30 degrees. It's a major shift. And so what it means, I think more than anything else, if we're to define it, and of course it is just my narrative, but then again, we do come by seeking narratives. That's why social media is so successful. Every channel you go to is a channel of consciousness where you can observe someone's aliveness. I don't think that should be a surprise if you find performance every time you arrive. This is just another form of that. But I think it's a good talk, Ocean. Sam says, William, you're so peaceful and beautiful. Sometimes. Thank you for seeing the good in me, Sam. Tony says, have you looked into numerology? We did a big thing on that, Tony. I think it was 2 days ago, I did a big 2.5-hour discourse, and it's on YouTube. It's all on numerology. Excalibur, thank you for following. Tell me, where is the Lady of the Lake today? Exactly, says Veda, thank you. We did 0 through 9, says Veda. Indeed we did. It was a big one. That's when you found me, Veda. That's awesome. I remember. Ocean says, well, if you're getting down to it, I would agree that TikTok isn't a form of entertainment. The real entertainment that I want to get to is, Ocean, when you say this, who is agreeing? Are you still observing, or is this Ocean's identity? It's an honest question. It's not a pinned question for it to pin you in any way. It's simply, we're not even playing chess. I just would like to know. Because with this, we can start to get to the truth of your being for entertainment purposes. But you may not want that. And if you don't want it, you'll play the word salad game with me, which we do. People play word salad with me. They come in, they drop the straw man talk and, say, what's your education? Where have you been? Are you a doctor? What are your credentials? We could go down that road. But I don't know. They've done it a lot. Yeah, of course. I said to you, Ocean, when you're saying this right here, when it comes down to TikTok as a form of entertainment exclusively, pretty much, it's a summary of what you're saying, but I'm pinning it again. You could be listening now. I'm going to try it as my last try. You got 52 seconds to pay attention. If you're getting down to it, I would agree that TikTok is in a form of entertainment. I'm asking you, is this the identity that is Ocean saying these things as a narrative? Or is this the aliveness that observes Ocean saying this? Just out of curiosity, I'd like to know. Do 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 do. Right, there it is. So here's the best answer from Ocean. And Ocean, I'm sorry you've lost this chess match. I was actually playing chess with you just for fun. This is me. I don't attach any other narratives to it. So that is a narrative. This is me as a narrative. The avoidance of answers, if I perceive it as that, is a narrative on my end. But the bottom line is I'm admitting that I'm performing right now. And you can't. Doesn't matter. It's the end of the conversation, though. I have no interest in speaking with you simply because there's only so far you can go. When I talk to people who come into this room, the people who I really believe, and you don't have to be courageous, Ocean, but the people who I sense really want to change will come in and say, this is the issue that I have. This is a challenge that I find. They're usually not judging anyone more than themselves. And what it does is it opens up a forum for us to heal collectively. And I like that. As my form of entertainment, that's what I like. So our conversation's now over in 2 seconds. I will not be responding to you anymore. Anyway, that's just me. That's how I play, you know? Perhaps you don't, but that's how Daddy plays. When Daddy's home. So, Veda says, when you hit a point of misalignment, it's just clear. Basshead or Basshead, I wish I got it right, says, you really help people. I am healed, says MP. This is it right here. This is the affirmation. I am healed. I am perfect health. I am wish fulfilled. I am coming into being, observing my aliveness. And I feel myself at ease in this moment. This is the stuff this is at least the purpose of this channel. From what I can understand right now, it has to do with us affirming our truth instead of playing a role. We would rather become proprietors over that role by coming into our power. If there ever was a narrative that I impose upon you that could be later on used to crucify me, there's no difference between this narrative and the narrative of Jesus of Nazareth. He wanted you to come into your power. He wanted you to discover the kingdom of heaven within you by becoming like a child in humility and embracing your truth. So let me be crucified for it. Let me be mocked too. Let me be, chastised, crucified. Let it be. That's fine. I am happy with that because I know it is an archetype that I'm happy to go through. Because I can rest assured understanding that I am in truth. We all come from sperm and egg. This is my narrative. I would rather be wrong with this narrative and be proven otherwise. And as soon as I'm proven that we're not coming from sperm and egg, someone shows me the irrefutable science from outside of me, I'm going to say, that's cool, but I am in my ignorance right now deciding to entertain the story that I once believed, that we are infinite and that we're not incarcerated by this world, and let that be my error. I'm fine with that. Ocean says, I think you're taking things rather personally, whereas I am just pointing out an opinion. Well, I can't take it more personally than this is William Vincent Carlton giving a performance. But what I can do is I can say, I observe this, someone making an opinion of me that is unsolicited, that has to do with something that isn't positive. It's not kind. It's not what people say to be closer. In a way, it's showing a need to set a distance. So what comes from this is manifestation. The manifestation that comes from this is you get to watch for the rest of the stream without being able to commune. You got what you asked for. Taking things personally means we want to have distance from one another. It was your desire. You've exercised it. And it was an instant manifestation. You received distance. But you can still have proximity. This is called a proximity effect. So my identity, William Vincent Carlton, worked as a behaviorist for about 15, 20 years. And one of the things I learned was when someone is exhibiting an undesirable behavior that disturbs the public or people around them or the environment in general, or it's self-injurious, it could be that too. What you do is, if they're seeking attention, and anytime someone's seeking attention, you can notice it because they communicate. It's either nonverbal or it is verbal in some way, but that's attention seeking. And so what happens in that instance of attention seeking, if it's negative and undesirable, what you do is you ignore, planned ignoring. So the way that I plan ignore someone who could type in at any moment as a form of trespassing is they get muted. So now the individual is muted, but they can still have proximity by viewing. You still have viewership. So that's good, Ocean. You still have viewership, but you are now in timeout, like a little child. And that's okay. It happens. It's just negative behavior. People don't want to hear it. They don't want to read it. It's an executive decision. I'm here to run a healing space. There it is. All right. Leb says, put others outside yourself and you will find yourself alone. This is beautiful. Kaylee is here, says, thank you, Kaylee, for offering to mute individuals. Appreciate it. All right, it's just, it's not that we're fragile. It's just, why would you go to a healing space to disrupt it? That would be attention-seeking behavior, and it's not something that is desirable by the collective. As I said before in the example that I gave, Native Americans would send you out into the woods alone, and you could decide whether or not you're going to stay there and start your own commune, or you could come back and adhere to the rules. And the rules that we have here are very simple. Judge not anyone, lest you judge yourself. Say those things in the means to create distance, and it will be instantaneously manifested here. Instantaneously. Because we have a space to maintain that has to heal people. It's here to heal people. We're probably at about 20 degrees Fahrenheit now. I love you all. Veda says, sometimes the trolls hurt my feelings, sometimes I'm tough. Yeah, and that's okay to be both. You know what I'm saying, Veda? I think this is very honest. And who said that about peace? Forgive me. Nature is the only place I'm at peace, says Alex. Yes, Alex, and that's why we're here. It's a beautiful escape, and it's filled with knowledge, free electrons that reduce inflammation in the body, and are mood elevating. We get all these beautiful things here. Alex says, miserable people are desperate for attention. We don't do that. On my best days, yeah, attention-seeking behavior is usually a masking of something that is happening that is pain-related. It's saying no to the environment, or else it wouldn't be disrupted. So we say no to the environment in a number of ways. Some people will escape by running. Other people will fight by trying to pummel the opposition. Some will offer verbal aggression. Some will be environmentally aggressive. I'm getting floored by this cold. That's why I'm actually got a little bit of a stuttering offering of words today. It's so cold right now. I'm just going to stay and warm up the arms and the hands. Alex says the air, the sun, the birds is what I want. Yeah, makes sense. And it's totally natural. So let's get into the sun. Get some of the sun in and just warm up everything. It's good. but I have to do it. So target behavior, disruptive behavior is attention seeking. And so we usually will attention seek through negative behavior because it disrupts the peace of the environment and brings in an isolation of attention focus. In other words, if someone is exhibiting negative behavior, everyone's attention then focuses on that. And if there's a focus on that, it perpetuates the behavior. It feeds it energy. And so it's being used as an example here because if we understand that what we focus on feeds it energy, we'll understand that we should focus on that which we desire. Now, sometimes disruptive behavior becomes so wild that you can't do anything about it. I used to have this on TikTok, actually. There'd be a number of individuals who would pop into the room, and who knows, they might have had a Discord server or, stream snipers. They're pretty relentless like this. They'll come into a room that has a good number of followers and viewers, and they'll just start pummeling the chat with a bunch of negative things or trolling comments. And then, of course, they'll get a bunch of attention from it because the focus goes on that. And so what you do in a situation where you simply can't control the environment, which we had at one point in time about a year and a half ago, we used to have concurrently anywhere between 1,500 to 2,500 concurrent viewers that were watching live. This was in the peak of the insanity of growth in this channel. And so when this was happening, you could have bots saying, check out the nudes in my bio. You could have individuals saying horrible things that you would never want to read, in ways that you can't even believe wouldn't be blocked and banned. And so when you're in that situation, that's when I usually just shut off the chat. Like, you just got to shut it off. And that's why I'm saying in life, you can apply the same thing. You shut off the chat by maintaining your breath, observing it. And after that, you go into the imagination and you start adding details that are wish fulfilling for you. It's the only way. You can't actually try to stop it through brute force. You have to surrender to the imagination within you, which is returning to your kingdom. And that gives you solace and protection and wish fulfillment and all the goodies. But it does require a lot of resolve to be able to break free from the manifestation before us, since we've been born to accept it as everything. Everything that is outside of us has been bred into us, indoctrinated into us so that we believe that it's more important than our imagination and where we can go there for salvation. So Tony says, think of one number between 1 and 4. See if I guess it. Veda says you'll need to warm up your core later. You're right, Veda. I will. Thank you for your care. So, here we are. Hands getting warm. Everything is getting warm. There's been a silencing of this wind. It's very beautiful, actually. I'm going to switch hands with this red jasper. Warm up the left hand. So let's get to this truth too. Disruptive, negative behavior, target behavior, where is it coming from? This is the great reveal. In truth, it is our aliveness feeding the conscious experience at all times. If it appears to be distorted, it is because that wish had been put out at some point in time through its construct, embedded into our body, into our cells, and is revealing itself. So instead of it becoming a challenge, it becomes a trigger or an opportunity to exercise the imagination and go there into wish fulfillment. Because otherwise it's just becoming respondent or becoming a response to something that's just a string of symbols. Imagine if we didn't know any English and suddenly we had to understand it. It wouldn't be anywhere near offensive as it is when you're fluent in the language. And this used to happen to me in Spanish. This used to happen to me when I was in Mexico, when I first arrived there. I would see a bunch of people saying a flurry of words that I wouldn't understand. And I would be there trying to observe non-verbally what it is, the meaning of this thing that's being said to me. And there were times when someone was speaking to me and I believed them to be so happy and so jovial and kind, when in fact I was reminded by someone who understood the language later that I was offending them extremely and that we were right on the cusp of having a tiff with each other, and I had no idea. I just had no idea because I was observing without understanding the language. But you can imagine what this does for you as far as peace goes. If I go into every scenario thinking that everyone is just kind and good, then it doesn't really matter what they say. Because if I don't really put any meaning into the language, then I'll never be offended by it. So think of it like you're walking into a scenario like a newborn babe, and for the first time you're taking in this language. It has no meaning to you. It's just sounds, like the wind or the birds that are chirping, anything else. And so as long as you don't put meaning into it that is so deep-seated that it would be offensive to you, then you know for sure you will not be offended. It's really kind of interesting. Alex, thank you for following and for your kindnesses in talking about nature. So when we are looking at the things that offend us, that we are labeling around us, what in effect we are doing is we're constructing time for their recall to decide whether or not this is a threat to my existence of happiness or this is something that I want more of. So we label things in order to determine and categorize our wants versus the things we don't want. Likes versus dislikes. This is why we do it. And we do it because we are beings of feeling. In fact, we are feeling addicts. That's why we're in this body, and that's why we have so many cells, and that's why the systems work the way they do in constant renewal. Because we want to have the most intensified, beautiful sensory experience in any situation that we are going through. Because it's part of the gift of being given life. Not only do we have access to the infinite source of creation, the imagination, but we also have a human body in order to experience things through a psychosomatic reaction. And it's beautiful. Sometimes. Sometimes it's beautiful. Speaking of that, Vicky says, beautiful Sunday, everyone. Indeed, it is, Vicky. We've got quite a day. Veda says, addicted to feeling. Yup, this idea that we are feeling beings. And we are addicted to feelings. Alex says, no, thank you, sir. Latino here. All right. My children are Latino. They are Mexican American. Yeah. Distance and time to have no effect on this energy. Alex says, welcome to the fam. Muchísimas gracias. Me siento bienvenido. Yeah. Yeah, I felt welcome for a long time in Mexico, right from the first day, really. This is the whole idea. If I don't feel comfortable with something, then who is that on? And the answer is, it's totally on me, 100%. De nada, says Alex. Yeah. There is a nuthatch right near us. Hello, nuthatch. Where are you? Little squeaker. Oh, there's catbirds too. You guys want to hear some catbirds? They're hysterical. I'm going to let you hear them today. I hear them out there. They are such trolls. Like the crows and the ravens are trolls. The catbirds are out there right now trolling people. Jody, in the light. Thanks for following. Tony says, when my stepdad's heart began to fail, it set me down to my knees 200 miles away. I went to get, sounds like a heavy duty. A heavy-duty pain remembrance. It's not to dismiss it. We have very deep-seated pain, most of us. And what I try to say to people is, if you want to unwind it and allow it to unravel and heal, the process of doing this is not an external search. It involves self-love through the use of the imagination for its appropriate processing. And the way that it's processed is like food digests in the body. And the way food digests is we start with it, right? We eat it. And then the body handles the rest. The intelligence knows how to process it. So the same thing happens with our pain. If it comes up, it's like we're eating it. When we go into the imagination, it gets processed and digested. But we don't have to know about the processing or the digestion process. We just surrender to the imagination, and it handles the emotional turmoil, unwinds it, and heals it naturally. It's kind of like being in a womb. When you're in the womb, you have your umbilical cord feeding you all of your nutrients. All the impurities are being removed at the same time. You don't even have to breathe. You have to breathe here, and that's great. It gives you relief, and it's used as a tool. However, the example is to explain to you when you're in the imagination, there's nothing that you need to know as far as plans go. You don't have to have the plan. This is a major life situation, Tony. And it is a form of story that has already occurred. It's not to dismiss its importance to you or to say that it's not meaningful. It's none of that. The only reason why I say it's a narrative is because it is something that is meaningful, that is also a construct. In order for you to revisit and write it, it requires the making of time. And so just know that unless its revisiting serves a purpose other than to watch it for entertainment, it will continue to have an importance in your life. And if it's felt for the pain more than coming forward and finding realization that there is love involved in this, unless there is catharsis, it shall continue to build into a deeper pain state. And that is what the ego loves to do, because it creates what it believes to be a permanent incarceration of the soul. So, as much as this is very sad and very heavy, just for me on the surface, I do understand where it leads if it is perpetuated. So I would rather you see, if I could make a suggestion, the purpose of you revisiting the story is to heal from it, right? And the way you heal from it is you imagine being with your father now, if that makes you happy. It could be he's at peace, at rest in some way. It could also be a happy narrative. But for me, like the loss of my daughter, I had a physical experience of my daughter dying. I went through it. It became a narrative, and it became a part of my life that was and is to a certain extent still present, but not nearly like it used to be. And what I discovered was that by perseverating on the loss, I could then create an excuse not to do things, not to move forward, not to process, and instead invite other people into it to say that this is my helplessness. I'm using this as an example of truth with my own life. My daughter died. I experienced it. I believed it to be extremely unfair, traumatizing, horrific. It led me down a path of self-discovery that was very long-winded and curvy and challenging, with peaks and valleys all along the way, ultimately leading me to understand that I was being disrespectful towards the aliveness that is my daughter still flowing through me at this moment as pure spirit. And so I commune with her in this way now, understanding that this was just one timeline of multiple timelines, endless timelines, in which my daughter is thriving and alive. So I go to those, and I visit them through what would be considered astral travel through the imagination. I go and I see her, and she's with me now. She's hanging on my shoulder, as I usually say. We're cooking pizza together, we're laughing, we're talking about life, and she's in her teens. That's what I do. And that gives me peace. Now, for the world, they could say that's disassociation. I could talk to a psychiatrist. They'll say that's someone having a psychosis break because of PTSD. And it's likely they've been depressed for a number of years, unable to handle or process these things, likely should be on medication. I don't know why he's speaking to people, offering them advice. He's really not in any position to be talking to anyone. That very easily could be the narrative of a psychiatrist. Or someone who seeks my destruction because I am perceived as a threat. And of course, that narrative could fall into line with the same narratives that Jesus of Nazareth faced. This man's talking as if he's the Son of God. He says that he has a kingdom. So let's call him the King of the Jews. Let's put a crown of thorns on his head and let's strip him of his flesh and nail him to a cross and put him up as an example that he is not the King of the Jews, because we will literally kill him and prove to the world that he is not who he says he is. And so what this is just an example of trespassing, and why I've gone so long-winded, it may seem insensitive to your story with your father, is because if you become the story of death, you will neglect the story of life. And that life story is everlasting, and it is the principle in which we are here. It is running through us as the form of grace that all of us are entitled to receive as human beings, and I wish that for you. That's all it is. Good, Tony. You came back. You were reborn. God's consciousness, this is all of us. This is the truth of our existence, our truth of being. Leb says, your experience of it feels very grounded to me. Thank you, Leb. We can process all of our pain remembrances in the same way, if that's your desire. It's to understand that there are constant timelines spinning off. It is an unbelievable web of aliveness that is constantly shifting and changing. Subatomic phenomena, quantum phenomena, dictates this. Scientifically, there must always be two possibilities constantly branching off. And the branch that we continue on, as far as the tree of life goes, is determined by where we focus our attention. So Schrodinger's cat proves this, along with the double slit experiment and quantum theory through a unified field. You could call it string theory. Okay, so the idea is that there is an interconnectedness between all aliveness in the form of consciousness, that it is a unified field in which all things that ever have been, will be, and can be experienced in the now already exist in a form of resting superposition. And until we entertain them, they will not collapse or reduce themselves into a field of local reality where we can observe them. So there's a unified field, superposition. You could call it the universal subconscious mind, or the mind of God. You could call it presence. You could call it aliveness. You could call it AGI, advanced generative intelligence. You could call it any of that. When we pay attention to things, there's a collapsing that occurs. It's an orchestrated, objective reduction of superposition into a localized form. That is our perceived reality right now. And it is happening at a refresh rate that is within nanosecond speed. So we can't perceive its coming and going, but we do perceive a manifold expression of aliveness. That's what our body gives us as far as limitations to our observation. If we were to put ourselves under a state of extreme DMT dump, then you would start to see outside of those constraints. You would see higher level fractals and dimensions being presented to you, and you would also experience an out-of-bodiness, a leaving of the body. But that's not why we're here, because if we were to have a higher experience, then we would leave the body probably permanently and no longer have a desire to return. For now, we have the desire to stay anchored down in our physical body for the sake of having these dualistic experiences, which are very painful, at the same time extremely liberating. But we are having an experience that is predominantly, it's totally holographic, and it's flickering, coming and going, constantly refreshing. Coming from a unified field and collapsing into existence and then returning from its recycle. But it's happening so fast that we do not perceive it in its flicker. We perceive it and experience it as whole, as holistic. Bam Bam, thank you for following. Heart Key Heart says, I'm still picking the pieces of my heart. It is a narrative, and it's totally yours. This is why I don't want people to feel like I'm dismissing your stories. Don't want you to feel like I'm dismissing your stories. I simply want people to understand that these are narratives that we build as a part of our life that serve as an important thing for us. They're important stories, but they are stories. And they're ones that we build using our infinite intelligence to bring forth their expression. We label them with this infinite intelligence, and we revisit them with this intelligence, that we are all uniquely given a kingdom from which we can create an identity and live through it. And this is a great gift. Tony says, thank you for caring so much. I do care, Tony. I care about everyone's stories, understanding that we all have our own unique kingdoms. Everyone has a different like or dislike menu, and that's our right as kings and queens of our domain. This is our God-given right. Where I believe the rights are trespassed, or when we believe that others must adhere to the things that we believe in, that's called trespassing as far as I'm concerned. More than happy to share our experiences with each other and talk to each other about them. But the moment that we say we must adhere to believing this and we don't have a choice in the matter is when there is too much trespassing, and it leads to the creation of suffering. So it's why it's such a big thing that we love our neighbor as ourselves, which is to say, your story, if it is important to you, I believe. That's really as far as I go. I don't say it's important to me, and that's not being insensitive. Me saying I believe means I believe that your kingdom is given to you as a God-given gift, and it is yours to receive and use as you see fit without interference. That's more love than me agreeing with anyone's story, I believe. I think it's a higher form of love, thy neighbor. Tony says, you're HSP also. What does that mean? Sorry, I don't understand. Run to the Farm says, thank you for all this info. So very helpful. You're most welcome. Run to the Farm. Thank you for saying that. Jarrett Skiba, and I'm going to say this right, Phlegathetic. Thank you for following. Where did you learn this? Asked Phlegathetic. Okay. So most of this falls in line with New Thought. There was a big movement of New Thought, or Christian Science, you could say, but that starts to turn people off. From the early 1900s, you had people like James Allen with As a Man Thinketh. You had Florence Scovel Shinn with The Game of Life and How to Play It. The Word is Your Wand. And then you had folks like U.S. Anderson writing 3 Magic Words in the Key to Your Subconscious Power. And Neville Goddard certainly was involved in these discussions. And through Abdullah, his spiritual teacher, he started to write on this extensively. One of the biggest books that is most life-changing, I think, for most people when it comes to this discussion of how we become what we think about is through Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. It's a great place to begin. And there is an audiobook available that's like 39 minutes long that's on YouTube for free. And it's through the Master Key Society. Thank you, Tony, for your kind statements. And so most of these things are acquired first through just listening to these discourses. I will be honest in saying most of these discourses, including Feeling is the Secret, I found to be fantasy in the beginning. I also found it to be kind of insane. I thought it was wild that I would become what I think about, and I really was opposed to the idea, and that was mostly just my egoic self trying to have a foothold still, while at the same time I wanted to figure out how I could reduce my pain remembrances or unwind them and undo them and heal through self-love. So I had a lot of resistance to these teachings that I now give to people, mainly because I had such a deep pain body, a lot of deep painful experiences that I did not want to let go of, that I identified with as my real purpose in being here was to be traumatized by external circumstances, and that it was my role to go through it, like a masochist would, that it was my role. And then I realized it just broke me down. It took away everything. It took away all of my wealth. It took away, and of course you hear me talking about how something outside of me took it away. It was the belief system that I was a victim of external circumstances that took away everything. So once I started to put it to test that I became what I think about, I started to see the proof first with my health and then mental acuity. And I started walking in the woods. And as I was walking in the woods extensively every day, I realized that something was happening. It was just a general feeling of betterness. I was just improving. And from there, I started to get further downloads, just little hints. I would fall asleep after listening to Feeling is the Secret, and then I would wake up to Abraham Hicks on autoplay. And then I would wake up to Three Magic Words being read by Wayne Dyer on autoplay, and I would want to learn more about Wayne Dyer. And then I would be on autoplay going to, almost like subconsciously bringing up a playlist feed. The next thing would be Joe Dispenza talking about epigenetics, and then Dr. Bruce Lipton talking about it. Like, what is this epigenetics thing? This is pretty wild. And so all of it just kind of started to evolve. Yeah, my mental acuity started to increase quite a bit. As Joe Dispenza says, it's the firing and wiring of the brain starts to rewire in a number of creative ways. Another thing that brought a lot of health and just mental crispness, if you could call it that, is writing. So I write religiously. I write a lot, prolifically. And every time I write, I usually read the sessions. I used to do it a lot more on the typewriter, but where I live right now, it causes a lot of noise, so I don't do it. But when I used to write on the typewriter every day, consistently, I would read those pages at night, and it was like walking into a whole new book that I knew I didn't write. I knew it was coming from some other source, some other writer, And what happened from that was, in my review of the pages that were written, I was also exposing myself to the presence that I was feeling when channeling the words. And that unlocked major ability with speaking and writing and confidence and being able to converse with people about most things. It came from writing. This is a big thing. Yeah, it super increases your intelligence when you read what you write and do it regularly. Vicky says, I do that, journaling. It's the same thing. I treat writing just like that. I treat writing like turning on a radio, and instead of me listening to words coming through a speaker, I'm listening to words coming through on the page. That's basically it. It's the same thing that I do here. We're just listening to words coming through on the page in the same way, but you get to see me unfold them. This is the same way I write. Later Rabbit, thanks for the lightning bolt and the rose. Wayne Dyer, didn't think anyone read his stuff anymore. I know, it's kind of, I guess, antiquated in a way, but he still has some really good stuff to offer. Enigmatic One says pain and discomfort can be the catalyst for true growth and awareness. I 100% agree. It's a great way to say it. Self-love is a concept not taught versus caring about others. Yeah, self-love actually is being able to exercise the imagination and believing that it is beneficial for your body. That's self-love. Believing that taking yourself into a place in the imagination where you're wish fulfilled has a benefit for your cells, which it does. And Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this. to a great extent, and Dr. Joe Dispenza shows you the studies where this happens. And if you don't get convinced through those two, you can look into the studies by Deepak Chopra. And most people are pretty accepting of his studies because he's been around for a while, and he's been on Oprah and most of the major outlets. So Deepak Chopra has also piggybacked on the epigenetics train, and he's shown a lot of improvements in people's DNA, and just what used to be the development of sickness can be mitigated through an environmental change through the mind. This is very revealing. And that's what we do here. We do environmental change through the mind. By stepping into the imagination, we entertain the things that represent our wish fulfillment, and thus we heal. And as long as I'm here in the woods, I get the support of the trees, and the flowing water helps a lot with just keeping my brain in sync so that I can just allow the downloads to come in and I can present them to you as purely as possible. I try to give you as pure of a stream as I can. That's really the goal. And it requires full surrender. So, hey Robin, nice to see you. Thanks for the roses. Amy is here too. Thanks for the rose. Thanks for all the love, everyone. So we're coming to the end of our journey today. It's been a wonderful discussion. It's been a great discourse. So once again, as we conclude talking about expectations on this day, your aliveness is the true expectation that you can always count on. That aliveness gives you the imagination and your ability to observe your environment in the now, and it also gives you the power to create time. So the expectation that you should have, that is the only expectation, is you can tap into your aliveness at any time. That's the expectation. And now you can understand, by tapping into your imagination, your cells feel that environmental change. So you can also have that. And you can also count on the final expression of your wish fulfillment, that harvest day. You can always go to your day of harvest. And even if it doesn't appear to be before you in your waking life, you must understand that you've impressed the subconscious and it is bringing forth those seeds. So until that is fully expressed, rest in the glorious expectancy of the good through the imagination by living it. Okay? That's how you can overcome all expectations of things outside of you. You go within and you see it fulfilled and you live it as fulfilled. And that gives you such relief. It starts with feeling in the body. The cells of your body come into that relief and everything else follows suit. Okay. Thank you, Robin, for your kindnesses. And Tony, thank you for your courage. Sometimes I feel like I could field these statements better. And I want you to know how I value you as Tony. I value you as the aliveness that feeds Tony. Every part of who you are is divine creation, and there's no exception in this space. No exception on this planet. So I want you to know that my respect for you is in that realm. I see you as a king of your domain, okay? All right. Hey, birds. You're welcome. Enigmatic says, thank you for sharing. You're welcome. Sending healing vibes coming in from Araceli. Thank you, Araceli. And we got other people here. Says, we got kind to you. Says, excellent discussion. Thank you. You're most welcome. And Tony, the divine alignments. Thank you. Mama Bear. Thank you. Grand Rising, beautiful souls. Thank you. Divine Mother, if you're still here, I want to thank you. And I pray that you're feeling more aligned. And please understand that sometimes this identity, William, will make errors, erroneous decisions to entertain things that may not be in alignment with everyone's highest good. But that's part of the navigation of this life situation that is today. Anyway, Oh, the birds really want some goodies, you guys, and they're waiting. So I'm going to put the camera on them for a second so you can see them. And then let me just check the time here. Oh, 4:44. There it is. Okay. We've got enough battery here to make a feeding for the birds. So I'm going to put the camera up for you all to see the birds. I'm going to run in and grab some peanuts, and then we're going to feed these beautiful guys because they are cold and hungry, and I can tell they're puffed up right now, and I want them to feel good. So hang on, I'm not going to go for too long. It'll be just like a few seconds, and I'll be right back. Hang on a second. All right, I'm coming, guys. Don't worry. Okay, let's get the birds some food. I'm coming, guys. They are all puffed up. You can see the sparrows are really chilly. Oh, guys. Hello, guys. It's okay, lovies. There, it's a good meal for you, okay? Come on, guys. Come get your food now. It's one of those crazy evenings where everything shifted. Went very cold. Okay. Let's get them over here. Come on, Junko. Come on, guys. Oh, they're so cold right now. Yeah, they're cold. Tony says this has been one of the most amazing group conversations. So much to absorb. Yes, it's all good, Tony. Thank you so much, Sunflower Goddess, and thank you, Leb, for your support. Everyone, really. Just thank you for being so present and for your love. We lift each other. We are lifters, not leaners. We are lifters. There's a beautiful house sparrow. Here you go, buddy. Kind of in suspended disbelief. There's a dark-eyed junco. Another dark-eyed junco. Yeah, they're coming around now. These guys are cold and puffed up today. There's a junco. Day in the Life asks, are the lives posted on YouTube? They are, and the link's in my bio. You can find it. It's called Sacred Imagination. William Vincent Carlton. And then Marlene says, light and pure love to all. Thank you, Marlene. Blessings to you. The juncos are happy. They were probably wondering if they were going to have some food before the end of the day. I'm very happy they got some. They're such little loves. There's a little dark-eyed junco. He's going to come over now. Robin, thank you for following. There's a house sparrow. Okay, guys. They got some food now, so I'm happy. I'm glad. Wouldn't feel right if they didn't. A Day in the Life says, I didn't think birds could eat peanuts. Oh, yeah, they definitely can. In fact, the black-capped chickadee loves peanuts. All these guys do. They love them, and they get a good source of fat and carbohydrates from them, so it's a good, well-rounded food. And the juncos have learned now, they're normally ground feeders and they go for ants and fleas and little creatures and stuff. They now will land and grab a big peanut and take it because they see how the other guys do it. So these juncos are kind of upgraded in their skill sets. Their beaks are pretty narrow, but they will breed with the house sparrow, and that's why you see some of these dark-eyed juncos. They're grayish, and they're not fully black and white-bellied. Those have left for Canada. These guys are the year-rounders who have interbred. So you see the sparrow in them, and of course the junco characteristic is the white underbelly right there. Oh, he's got a good one. That's a good score. He's like, dude, what do I do with this? And he's going to eat it right there. He's going to have his dinner. And they have little tiny beaks, so it's pretty impressive that he would pick up that peanut. Like I said, these guys have adapted, and they're very adaptable. That's why the dark-eyed junco is really one of the most researched birds by Cornell Ornithology, because they adapt and they live in cities. They can live in rural areas like this, and they can interbreed with a lot of species without any issues with genetics. All different colors come in with the junco too.